quite a bit throughout the week. Well, thanks for getting up this morning, Thursday, 8:30. It's always interesting to kind of get the announcement of exactly when you're going to be giving a presentation. And I got the Thursday morning slot, and I was like, oh, that's the short straw, isn't it? Well, you know, I kind of moped around about that for a while, but I've been out in the expo hall and spoken to some of you about just issues that are on your mind. I work in the documentation booth. I'm a technical writer on the System Center team. Focus a lot on the ops manager space, especially app monitoring, and the DevOps docs. So during the talk here, I'm going to be going back and just showing you a glimpse of the docs, because you really need to rely on them to really get through this confidently. I've got some good screenshots in there to escort you along the way of configuring the management packs and whatnot. But it also, being a writer, I think of stories, right? And the DevOps scenario was a very compelling story for me. And that's what I want you to listen for today as we go through this, is really what's the story of DevOps and what's possible now with System Center 2012 SP1. And I think another benefit of having this Thursday morning slot is really, you know, out on the expo floor and whatnot, I got to listen to you, like I was saying. A lot of people ask about DevOps. What is that? So make sure we all have a clear understanding of that pretty soon here at the beginning. But it was great just to hear your questions. That's why I come here, to talk to you. So thank you for all that. And it's good to sit in on other sessions throughout the week, and more today and a bit tomorrow as well. So again, thanks for coming, and good morning. So, DevOps. People get what this is a buzz term, right? People get what DevOps is a little bit. I'll kind of center on a short definition shortly. But you know, there's a lot of pain around this space. It's not something you like to wake up to every day, for instance. And it's been solved in a few ways, or solved, I'll say, or dealt with. One is, you know, gosh, I'm running the system over here, infrastructure. There's an app problem. You got the ops, you have the dev. And there's a tension there, I think, that's inherent. They have different goals, which we'll talk about. And there are different ways of trying to remedy this. I mean, in the past, what is it? It could be a conversation at the desk, or numerous conversations at the desk. Or I'll send you an email and describe what it is. I'll try to copy some of the code and send it back to you. Oh, it becomes this elaborate back and forth. You know, you saw me maybe folding something up here. I mean, it can come to this at most creative, when it's at its best, perhaps. It's like, I put some of the C# on this, you know, and there it goes, and you send it over if the desk is nearby, and it lands there, and it's fun, and you try to resolve things, perhaps. But if the desk is overseas, you know, what do? Put a note in a bottle, perhaps? I got a problem, you send it adrift, and that doesn't really help your MTTR too much. With the ocean currents as sluggish as they are. So it's been kind of a long journey to get to, I think, where we are today with the DevOps space. So just so we center on a definition of DevOps, because throughout the week, again, kind of I adapted this deck as I heard questions at sessions and I talked to people throughout the week. And I think this is the definition I'd like to settle on, because it's really about the communication, collaboration, and integration between dev and IT. Some of the common thoughts about this, or first takes, is like, you know, what is DevOps? Well, it's when I'm an IT ops person and I can code, or I've got some scripts running. I can do that. But this is really about how the teams work together. So I just want us to begin there on a common space. And so what's the problem? Well, the problem is that this very thing that defines DevOps is kind of hard to do. You know, the communication, collaboration, integration between the two teams is tough. It's not efficient. So that's the space that these new management packs with System Center 2012, SP1 address. That's where we're going. How many people have seen this slide throughout the week? A few. If you've been to they're good. There have been a few DevOps talks throughout the week. So I'll just go through the points on this. Application lifecycle challenges. Well, different tool sets, right, for developers, different tool sets for the IT ops side of life. That's sometimes you have a person or two who might know the other. Not always, not in detail, not like you would know your like ops manager, how it works and the particulars of alerting. Oftentimes, your focus as an ops person on the service is running. It's great and great. I'm doing. Look, we're up. We're flying. It's all's well. And it's the customers who find your problems, right? They're out there going, oh yeah, well it's not working for me. Maybe something's working here, but it's not, on site, but it's not working up there. And that's where Global Service Monitor really digs in, because it's availability monitoring worldwide. And you can, that's really if, the endpoints are working or not, basically. So you get that glimpse like, hey, somebody is not seeing this in Tokyo. Somebody's not seeing the app in London or something. So that GSM really gives you a jump on that part of the app lifecycle. You're working in a production environment, and so how is the dev going to work, kind of really debug what's really going on in the production environment? That's always a challenge. And then when it does, you kick it over to dev because it looks like it's a code problem. There's not a lot of feedback you can give them that they can really work with. So you feel like you're just tossing it over the fence. You're sending the paper airplane, message in a bottle or whatnot. And they can possibly say, well, it worked on my machine. It's kind of a classic response. Or, I don't know, I'm not seeing it here, et cetera. Just kind of a common thing we probably all heard before. And then you have kind of latency or long deployment cycle times just kind of built into all this. There's a lot of quality gates, and it's more time, right? So this whole thing basically takes time, a lot of time. It's just not efficient. And as I stared at this again throughout the week in your seats back there, it kind of reminded me of almost an Apollo-era orbital mechanics kind of graphic, like the lunar module will orbit the moon and spin off around the Earth and that kind of thing. And it does seem dated, doesn't it? Doing things like this, that's what I thought of. It's just a little retro. And I think also, when I really started contemplating that, I went for a nice run the other day, thinking about this. It's like, the devs are stars, the IT ops people are the stars of this computing world in the org. And they kind of orbit each other in gravitational tension, right? They're going around, and what am I going, they need each other, they can't get away, but they're not really one. Or if it comes to fisticuffs, maybe they're like boxers circling each other in a ring, but I like the stars better. So, like we kind of established already, basically, IT and dev have just different goals. Development needs to get new features, new code, things out, just improve the apps, get the new apps out, new deployments. And operation really needs to, of course, focus on the availability and what's most efficient, and are things running as smoothly as possible, and keep them that way. But of course, these different goals kind of leave a gap, right? And it's a gap that impacts really a lot of the business value of what you can deliver, I think, overall as a computing arm of the org. So just real briefly, some of the business impacts, I think, they're fairly apparent when you think about them. You're not going to be efficient when you're going through all the different processes like that. The communication piece is broken to a degree. especially if you have to resort to making paper airplanes with every node or something. You're not agile, okay? You just can't turn things around. You can't get things deployed to production fast enough. You can't deal with frequent changes very well, and you can't respond to changes either. You're just not nimble. And then, of course, ultimately, the customers who are using your apps, who need them, and your business needs them, right, too, but the customers are not happy about all this. Because I asked for this 2 months ago.
The alarm you have just heard is part of the hotel early alert system. The reason for the alarm is now being investigated. We will keep you advised. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm just going to keep going for a bit, and good luck hearing what I have to say.
The alarm you have just heard is part of the hotel early alert system.
So these are pretty apparent things.
We will keep you advised. Thank you.
What we've kind of covered. The value of using the DevOps scenario, right? This would be awesome to build into it, though.
May I have your attention, please?
Communications is better.
Just heard is part of the hotel early alert system.
You can integrate the tools,
Is now being investigated. We will keep you advised.
fix problems faster, decrease the time it takes to get things from maintenance to production, and you can optimize for a fast-moving environment,
The alarm you have just heard
and it's extensible.
early alert system.
So you can use Orchestrator to automate your deployments, for instance, on the dev side.
Thank you.
So basically, you're moving a lot more swiftly.
May I have your attention, please? The alarm you have just heard is part of the hotel
Wow.
early alert system. The reason for the alarm is now being investigated.
Well, let's go through a little history lesson of Ops Manager just for fun. Back in 2000, you could monitor the outside of apps and kind of look at performance data, right? You kind of had an idea of maybe what was going on, but not a full inside glimpse for sure. Got a little better, 2007.
The alarm you have just heard is part of the hotel early alert system.
And in 2012, of course, we got the .NET Application Performance Monitoring. And that is kind of really the first time you could look inside the app and get what was going on. So you could kind of do the classic, is it the infrastructure problem or the app problem? And that was a big deal. In fact, I think when that was announced at MMS a few years ago, there was actually a cheer that came up because you could figure out whose problem it was.
May I have your attention, please?
And now with DevOps, you can, with 2012 SP1, we have a greater range of apps you can monitor. And we also have the global service monitor, as I mentioned. That's out now, so it's a new way of monitoring. And the management packs that we'll talk about, can really help you efficiently handle these app problems that need to go over to the development team. So basically, with SP1, you have more apps you can monitor and a better way to handle the stuff that needs to go to the dev department. So I could keep going, but is this efficient with this thing going on? Is it good?
The reason for the alarm is now being investigated. We will keep you advised.
Huh? No. You can almost hear me. Good. Well, this is the dance I've been preparing.
May I have your attention, please? The alarm you have just heard is
I wonder if
early alert system. The reason for the
we
alarm
could figure out how long this might go on.
keep you advised. Thank you.
Any news on with this?
May I have your attention, please? The alarm you have just heard is part of the hotel early alert system. The reason for the alarm is now being investigated. We will keep you advised. Thank you.
Can you guys hear? I mean, yeah. You think?
May I have your attention, please? The alarm you have just heard is part of the hotel's early alert system.
Linux system.
The reason for the alarm
Notice there's
is now being investigated.
deploying
We will
Linux
keep you
using
advised.
Windows
Thank you.
Azure. Is that the way to do it, or do you just?
I'm not sure. Thank you for coming up front. I have a volunteer. No, just kidding. I'm not sure about that. Yeah, thanks. All right. Should we go back a bit? You want to? Okay. I gave it my best trying to just break through the ice there, but yeah, that would be one way to make the alerts work, wouldn't it? So I think it was basically here where it got difficult. So again, basic concepts that we've kind of talked about already, but the new management packs for the DevOps scenario really give you these values, right? You can streamline your communications, the big communication piece that was sort of the problem to begin with. Your tools, as you'll see, or maybe if you've been to other DevOps talks, will be able to see how Ops Manager is integrated with TFS. So your operations tool is really integrated and synchronized with Team Foundation Server and Visual Studio. You can really, thanks to APM and whatnot, quickly detect and fix problems that need help from the dev team. You can figure out if a problem needs to go one way or the other. If it's an infrastructure problem or an app problem. Decrease the time it takes for the maintenance and production because you kind of have a better idea of what's going on. You can communicate. IntelliTrace snapshots are possible. We'll do a walkthrough of that. And in the services environment, you're just moving faster. You have to be more agile. You can't spend time saying, I don't know, I saw it, I didn't see it. And you can also have the ability to optimize deployment by automating it with Orchestrator. So just to touch on those again. So just a little context for where we are is what I was articulating through the alarm there. Since about 2000, we've been monitoring apps. And at first, of course, we just looked at events and performance data, right? We just could see the outside of an app, what kind of it looked like from there. 2007 and then 2007 R2, distributed apps, still looking at outside of it, though. A little more, but you're still looking at the outside of these apps. No real insight into whether the code was going on, what was going on with the code. In 2012, how many folks are running 2012 in their environments? All right, good. So you've probably experimented with APM. That was, of course, brought into Ops Manager in 2012, and that's really when we can look at the inside of an app, right? Dive down to the call stacks, really figure out is it an infrastructure problem? Is my, response times are very slow, or is it really something else that's hanging up? Is it a dev problem? So that was huge, right? You can have some insight into which way it should go. That wasn't quite so possible before, at least efficiently possible. And then now with 2012 SP1, which came out in mid-January, and the DevOps management packs that are also available at that time, we're both monitoring even more types of apps and services, so that's good. We have Global Service Monitor, which is an attached service to Ops Manager that allows you to monitor points of presence around the world from various locations. Web app availability, basically. Is the app on or off? Is it working or not for customers? And then we have enabled DevOps, the scenario we're talking about today, where you can figure out if you have a code problem using APM, if it should go over to dev, and you can handle that efficiently. So that's the goal of the DevOps, is to take this code, alert or whatnot that you've gotten that indicates a code problem, send it to dev efficiently. All right? So that's kind of where we've come from to get here. So the DevOps cycle, real briefly, this is what we're going to be talking about here for the next part. This is sort of what happens, right? You get an alert and operations manager. You've enabled alert attachments. It means you can attach files to an alert. You can attach an IntelliTrace snapshot. And IntelliTrace, as you might well know, if you've been to the other DevOps talks, is a debugger. So it's a dev thing. They love it. IT ops doesn't know much about it usually, but devs love it because they can look at the code and see what's going wrong. So you can attach some snippets of the code. You can assign this alert to engineering because you've synchronized Ops Manager and TFS. They get it in their environment, in the TFS environment. They can kind of fix and track it in their TFS kind of way. And you see that also in the Ops Manager as the status of the alert. And they can then fix it and assign it back to you in Ops world. So you see that in IT tools again. So that's kind of basically what's going on. You can synchronize the tools. You can attach information that's helpful for developers to see and fix the problem. And they can assign it back to you, and you can track what's going on the whole time. The cool thing, and you might hear me say this a few times because it's so significant to this problem space, is that when you use the IntelliTrace attachment, what IntelliTrace grabs is actually the production environment code. It's not some test code or it worked on my machine kind of code. It's the actual production code where the exception occurred. So that's powerful because it's the real thing, and so the devs have a lot better insight into what's going on. So we've got the output of our IT tools is natively consumed by the dev tools. Like I just said, it works to sync them together. You can collect the root cause of issues in IntelliTrace, which the devs love. So you're going to be, as an IT person, they're going to start to like you quite a bit. Common goals. Well, you have common metrics now from MTTR. You're kind of working on the same thing. It's the same ball field, if you will. And you can see the operational alerts that you have in Ops Manager are also the work items, the operational issue work items that are created correspondingly in TFS. That's a new work item type that's in TFS that's enabled with the DevOps Management Pack. And there's the results, that collaboration we've been after for many years now, where basically the culture develops, where we're all playing together. We all need each other. Yes, we're doing different things. We have different goals as those twin stars, but maybe we just kind of, the gravitational tension is lessened or something of that ilk. So you can work together more efficiently across the app lifecycle. So that's the big picture of the DevOps scenario. Communication, collaboration, and integration. That's the storyline here. So let's do a walkthrough. And I adapted this a bit through the week. As I watched other demos and things, this is like watching a tennis match in a way, where you literally go from one side to the other side, the IT pro side, ops tool side, to the developer tool side, and back and forth. And that's cool to see live. And the demos have done a good job of doing that, I think. But I wanted to, given that if you've been to some of those sessions already, I wanted to just grab the screen flows and highlight the new UI that's there. And we can just, clearly see what's going on as we go back and forth. So, our friend, the alert. There's an alert. Simple as that. I can see in the description, though, as I get to look closer, it's like, this is kind of looking like a code problem. I've got this, I don't know, like application failure, it says up there in the top line here, right there. It's like, this is an app thing I figured out. So, I'm going to take this, I'm going to make sure, and I kind of go to the knowledge tab here. Yeah, sure enough, that's what it looks like. So, I have DevOps configured. That means that I can send this alert to engineering, so that's where I'm going with this. Like, okay, it's not my problem, it's engineering problem. Thanks, APM, for letting me know that. So I'll go back to the alert, and I can assign it to engineering. That shows up in TFS on the engineering side. And they can see what I've highlighted in green here, the same information that you had in the alert. And so at this point, they have the work item, you have your alert still. It's not like you gave the alert away or anything like that, right? They're both synchronized. And just FYI, the synchronization rate you can vary, right? All this stuff is configurable. I think the default rate is about once every 15 minutes or so. So they're seeing exactly what you're seeing. And importantly, here at the bottom, the last two lines talk about an IntelliTrace attachment. I'll call this IntelliTrace Mini. This is a small IntelliTrace capture from the production environment that had to do where this exception occurred. It's right, kind of a scoped view, if you will, of the code right at that point. I'll talk about the full IntelliTrace capture in a minute. So they see this. They can go to attachments, and they can actually open up this IntelliTrace snapshot, mini snapshot, and say, okay, look at that. That's my code. That's the production code. Okay, I got some ideas about what's going on here, perhaps, but I need some more info on this one. Maybe they won't. Maybe this is good. But at times, they might need a lot more. So they can take this. We've given it to our top dev here, and you can then kind of change the status to awaiting evidence, which sends it back to IT, and kind of say, hey, please send me a full IntelliTrace log. You can put a message in there, right? And that's, again, in TFS, so they're not working in Ops Manager. So it gets reassigned for more information. So back in Ops Manager, you're sitting there, oh, they need more info. They want a full IntelliTrace capture, a collection of this, so they get more insight, more data into what's going on with the app. And then you can check history. It's like, yep, that's what they're asking for. That's the full message you can see there, just to be clear. And what the DevOps management packs give you here are some IntelliTrace tasks, or the IntelliTrace management pack gives you that. So you have a number of tasks to basically turn on and off a collection of IntelliTrace. And that's kind of your control panel, if you will, for doing this. So you can start IntelliTrace, and this is a full collection. Now, when you start this, interestingly, thanks to .NET Framework supporting only one profile, we cannot run both APM and the full IntelliTrace. So under the hood, we kind of switch off the APM and turn on the IntelliTrace collection. And then likewise, when you stop the IntelliTrace collection, you get APM back. So what a drag, you might say. But then I think the bigger picture, perhaps, is that, APM got us to the point where we realized we had this problem. We identified this problem. It's kind of done its job here for this one. We can turn it off for a bit to fix this issue. And I would say that probably if the dev needs to go back and look at the full-blown IntelliTrace collection, it's probably, shut down APM, it's probably a pretty high-price issue. You're selling tickets to something and no one can buy them. That kind of app failure, right? So you can start IntelliTrace. Looks like that. IntelliTrace starts running. And once you click, kind of start the collection going. So now the APM is off, IntelliTrace is on. Then you can open up your app. This is one of our test apps we run. And you reproduce the error. So again, you're getting a bigger scope. You're like starting IntelliTrace, open up the app, kind of go through the whole error scenario. And when that's done, you essentially close the collection, or you grab the collection. Like, I'm done collecting it now. And then you can stop IntelliTrace. At that point, APM comes back on. You can also then open the attachment location. and you see the extra IntelliTrace file there. That's the second one down here. Just FYI, so you can verify that that second attachment will be sent with the alert over to TFS. And then, now that you're happy there, time to volley it back to the devs and say, you got it. Here's your full collection. Have fun, go to it. So back in TFS, you can see there are now 2 files that they can look at. And the second one you just collected is way more detailed than the first one, right? The first one is just several lines, a little more than that. This has a lot that they can work with. So it's basically a bigger chunk of your production environment that you gave them. And again, I'll just emphasize, it's the production environment code. Super helpful for them to repro things and to work. It's not, they don't have to worry about other glitches, and they know that's unique to their machine or configuration or whatever. That's huge for efficiency in the whole process. Now, this is something that's kind of neat, but it hasn't been talked about at the other DevOps sessions that I know of. We just talked about how you can, if you get an alert that's a code problem, you can use IntelliTrace and do the collection of that kind of scenario. This is very similar, but you don't even need an alert. You can start it right from the app component. Why would I want to do that? Well, let's say my app problem, someone's discovered it, maybe a customer, that, again, my tickets, when I want to sell my tickets, I click tickets, and it actually shows me maps of the restrooms or something like that, right? Something is not working right. But it's not a performance issue. Like the other page is loading fine. It's fast. There's no exceptions. It hasn't exceeded thresholds, etc. It's just a business logistics, a business logic problem. So you can also just launch the full IntelliTrace collection from here. Process is the same. Start the collection, repro the error, stop the collection. And you can see that this will generate a new alert, attach the file, and you can assign that back to engineering as well. So the alert will be generated from this process. So that's kind of cool because that whole issue comes up oftentimes. All right? So that's good for a walkthrough. I think that, the benefits of this probably apparent by this point, right? You can really, I think you just know what's going on. There's less back and forth. You're working in tools that are familiar. Devs can use their environment. They're comfortable. You can get more info. They can request more info from you in an easy way that makes sense, and it's the right info. It's not someone in IT ops guessing what they might need. It's the right thing. And you can do some deep troubleshooting, both on the dev side and on the ops side too. If you want to dig down in the call stacks using application performance monitoring, you can certainly do that. That's not, either side. But certainly on the on the developer side, you can dig down way into that production code. And of course, like we said, it gives them the details to fix the problem. So, the new management packs. We'll talk about several of them, but they're really the 3 key ones. The first one, and this is the first one you'll want to get imported, is the Alert Attachment Management Pack. This one allows you to attach those IntelliTrace snapshots to the OM alerts. And the alert attachment, as we'll talk about in a bit, is required for Global Service Monitor. You have to have it for that, as well as for IntelliTrace. Else you can't send things back and forth, right? It's the infrastructure for that. The TFS Work Item Synchronization Management Pack. That's the one, aptly titled, that allows you to sync up the alerts and the work items. IntelliTrace Profiling Management Pack allows you to use and run IntelliTrace in the production environment and do the collection of the larger IntelliTrace snapshots. Then also, the Global Service Monitor attached service and the management packs that enable that app. And then you could even monitor the TFS developer environment if you'd like. You don't have to do this one, but that's also out there at SP1. So you can really have, pretty good insight into what's happening even with the whole DevOps process using this. And the other management packs also monitor themselves. So if something's not working well with the synchronization, you'll get an alert about that, depending on how you configure it. So let's go a little bit deeper on each of these. These can be pretty complex. I'm going to show you some of the docs that describe this. And again, thinking about the story of the DevOps, the doc set really tells that story pretty well, which is to say, I wrote them. And I hope it does, because I thought of it that way. This is a big piece of our lives that we work with and we need to make better. And the docs are all together in TechNet, and I can show you that at the end and reference some of these, but they all go through the gnarly, sometimes override setting parts of this configuration. So it should be pretty clear in there, and it was good. I actually got some good feedback during the week on that, so it was always good to hear that from people. So like I said, the Alert Attachment Management Pack lets you attach things to the alerts. And it defines one of the tasks we saw, which is basically the Open Alert Attachment Location. So what you do a lot when you configure this management pack is really to define a file share, set overrides where you're going to store things and configure the run as profile with an account that has permissions to access that location. So a lot of it's setting that kind of thing up. As I said before, you need this. It's required for Global Service Monitor and IntelliTrace, because you can't, again, you can't attach anything without this. This is the glue that makes it the infrastructure management pack of the DevOps space. And the little screenshot up here is really, where's my mouse? I don't have a mouse. Oh, there it is. There. Okay. This screenshot is one of the ones in the docs. I'll just scroll through the doc. I'm not going to recite the doc for you. But it's just an example of, like, I tried to show really how you go in, where you go in, all the layers of some of the overrides that you need to set. A little too complex for a PowerPoint slide. But that's the one where you enable the alert attachment discovery rule and point to where the file share location is. So doc looks like this. There we go. Let's make it bigger for you. So just so you can get an idea of what we're talking about here, in terms of the guidance for this, so you're in the TechNet library, Operations Manager, the Ops Guide, and this whole section here, integrating Operations Manager with development processes, is the place. It's kind of a top-level place for all this stuff. And that was really a great thing that it all came together. I think partially the management packs were all built together. We could produce the content together and work closely with the engineering folks on this, of course. So it was really a neat project in that way. But this is the story of your DevOps. And so the doc, just to look at it, what I tried to include, again, thinking about the story, I tried to talk about the value of doing this in the first beginning, just like you'd read a newspaper article, right? What's this about? That kind of thing. Same idea. So it doesn't just jump into, here's how to do it, ABC, without any context or reason why. And goes through the procedure after that pretty closely. So scanning through this, you can see some things you're going to have to deal with, right? give the Active Directory account full control of NTS permissions for health safe folder. You know, permissions, a lot of permissions work in this one because you're setting up the file shares. Here's one of those nice screenshots. That's the location of the alert attachment account that you need to configure. And this one here is some of the override menus that we looked at before that you'll need to reset. So it's the path to the alert attachment file share. So just again, I'm not going to walk through the whole doc, but just a good glimpse of what's there. This is the override properties page where you change some settings, and with the correct settings in the screenshot, of course. And so hopefully these tried to really make these pretty lean instructions so they get right to the point with some value at the beginning. So every management pack has this. So the next one, I like to call this one the heart of DevOps. Even though the alert attachment management pack is required, as I said, to get everything hooked together, and it's the infrastructure piece. When I think of all really what you're trying to accomplish with DevOps, the communication, collaboration, integration, this seems like the heart of it. This is what allows you to synchronize your OM alerts with the TFS work items. And there's actually, this is one of the bigger sections of the doc set too, because you can do a lot, right? And there's some strategy involved, which I try to delineate. But like I mentioned, you can change the frequency of synchronization with TFS. Like if you're working on something that has a rapid, quick, short timeline or something, you're going to maybe want to bring that down from 15 minutes, what the default is. Importantly, you can get notifications when development reassigns something back to you, right, or needs more information. You don't always have to just monitor that particular alert. So you can choose which issues you want to receive those on. So you don't just get noise. You can be pretty selective there. Kind of a neat one is automatically close the alerts when the work items are resolved. So it brings up the question like, okay, say the developers say something's fixed. Do you agree with that? Like, are you ready to close that alert or not? You can. You can say, when you guys fix this, resolve it, close my alert, whatnot. But I think also you might want to think about, at least at times, is maybe it's prudent to actually see this, say, okay, it's fixed. Thanks for fixing it. I want to wait until I see this in my production environment that it's not throwing any more alerts, right? And then I'm going to close it. So it allows you that option as well. You can stop and resume the synchronization, simple configuration there. And you can automatically send attachments for specific apps or all the apps to TFS. So you can auto-assign to engineering. Just depends on what the case is, right? Might be quicker in some cases to do that. If you know something's recurring going on, maybe not. And kind of neat, you can choose which project location and which area in TFS is used for each app component. And essentially what that does is let you assign the right problem to the right dev. Think of it that way. So you can be pretty efficient in that manner as well. That doc, I'll just give you a quick look at it. Similar, right? So it's all here in the big library of the DevOps topics. And again, there's some planning work involved. So I try to call that out quite a bit here in the doc. You've got to get the alert attachment MP in there, as I mentioned. And there's the particulars of which TFS you're working with, and object model, et cetera, is all in there. So I know a question that often comes up in configuration is like, I'm doing, running this and this, but this doesn't, we tried to cover all, if not certainly the majority cases in the docs. So go there to take a look at it. We also link over to some of the topics that are outside of TechNet, outside of our library for the IT pros, right? Why? Well, this is a scenario that outspans the IT pro realm. So I do have links over to the MSDN topics occasionally, or some other topics in Microsoft websites that are relevant or tell you how to do certain parts of this. And there it is, kind of the heart of the procedure right there. Screenshots, how to change the sync settings. So a little long for a slide, but very doable. Okay? So once you get the heart of DevOps set up and the ability to attach alerts, you can go and get IntelliTrace management pack running. And this, again, is, like we've said many times already, ability to get the IntelliTrace both automatically, the mini traces I mentioned, as well as the larger collections, the full IntelliTrace. Without that, MP you can't do either of those things. Yeah. The question was, what's the average performance hit on doing an average IntelliTrace collection? I'm not sure, is the thing. It depends how long you run it, and kind of the bigger picture of what's going on in the environment, I think, from my understanding. But one, it's not the reason, but you're shutting down your APM monitoring, which can maybe be a trade-off in a way. That's not why we're shutting it down, but that's a framework issue. But that's kind of a way to think about it. Okay. So again, I don't need to necessarily go through this whole doc. This one's actually even shorter. Maybe I should show it to you. It's nice and short. But again, walks through in a similar fashion and talks about the configuration of that.
Attention, please. The alarm you have just heard is part of the hotel early alert system. The reason for the alarm is now being investigated. We will keep you advised. Thank you. May I have your attention, please? The alarm you heard was caused by a minor incident. The situation has been taken care of. We apologize for any inconvenience. Thank you. May I have your attention, please?
You got it. You got it.
The alarm you heard was caused by a minor incident. The situation has been taken care of. We apologize for any inconvenience. Thank you.
So it was a great session on GSM. Great session on GSM. Just the other day here at MMS. I just included a link to it because that session really went into the details of how this works and how it works with the alert attachments and all that. So I go to that link. It's an awesome demonstration of that. But basically, GSM gives you the power to see what's up with your points of presence around the world in various locations, right? It's availability monitoring. Is it working or not? And you can use developer web tests that they author in Visual Studio most often, right? You can actually view those. And that's what kind of this helps you do. So you have an insight to what's going on and can sync up with what developers are trying to test for the global service monitoring. And this is the one that's totally optional, right? But allows you to monitor the TFS environment as well. So it's just another insight. Again, the big management packs, the big three that were first on the list, the alert attachment, TFS sync, and the IntelliTrace, they will monitor themselves. So, you'll get alerts if something's not, if the synchronization is off or broken. You'll see that information. So this is not about that. This is just about the TFS environment. So, simple math. I think this is, again, thinking about the story of this, as I learned a bit more about each MP, meddle a bit more with the engineers, with the program managers building this, I kind of came up with this equation. And it's not unlike, we hear a lot about 360-degree app monitoring, right? You can view the app this way, GSM, have a big picture. And this, I think, really adds up to a great platform for DevOps. And that's a big picture thing as well. It's a big picture of how your organization runs and works. So those are the parts right there that make up the full thing. Global Service Monitor is an attached service, so it's not required. Some like the TFS monitoring management pack, not required. But basically, that's the parts that really give you the full platform for DevOps. And I think that's what we just built for SP1, 2012 SP1. We just built a DevOps platform. That was kind of a neat moment when I realized that. I'm like, heck, we did that. It's good. So there's some things to think about before you just dive into this. Not that many, but a few. You kind of want to review on what your policy is about, sharing your production data, because that's what you're doing, right? Can it go outside of IT ops or not? Because with IntelliTrace, you're taking snap of that and you're sending it to dev. And certainly with the full collection, that's going to go outside of your IT organization. So take a look at what your policies have to say about that. Why? Well, APM, as you might know, IntelliTrace, they collect everything in a way, everything, but they can get some, personal information in there along the way as you collect performance data, as you collect just the code data, what's coming in with app errors. So it's, I think a good way to think about it is treat your monitoring environment the same way you would treat your production environment. Okay? That's probably a good takeaway for that one in terms of security and policy. What are the SLAs? You can kind of keep your noise down if you configure proper SLAs, and then you can ensure more actionable alerts. So just kind of look at how you have APM configured, for instance, to make sure you've kind of honed it down. Like you might not want to start the whole DevOps thing with a brand new app you're monitoring before you figure out what it's doing and how it's working, and before you kind of set the thresholds to where you think they need to be. Otherwise, everyone's going to get randomized a bit. How technical is the IT team? Well, by this I mean, when you talk about call stacks and looking at that, do people get scared? Do they kind of try to hide or take the coffee break at that point? Are the IT folks on your team and your org kind of almost senior developers in a way? Like, can they really get this? Are they even using TFS? Is it no problem for them to dive into the deeper realms of the app code issues? And I think that really what this talks about is trying to figure out how to deal with troubleshooting on the IT side before things go to dev. Right? And that can profoundly affect how you use DevOps. Essentially, what are your organizational thresholds to deal with an app issue before you send it over using the TFS synchronization, you assign it to engineering. Before you do that, what are you going to do on the IT side? So that's a good conversation to have, kind of an assessment to have, is what kind of skills, interests, abilities do you have on the IT ops side for troubleshooting the issues. And again, how agile is the app lifecycle? You know, are you really needing to crank out stuff, you know, a service, you know, every day? And you talk, everyone has a lot of different app life cycles going on, but is it quite frequent? If so, do we need to think about automation? Is that important to kind of consider? Like, what's that story before we just start the DevOps process? Because you can automate with Orchestrator. You know, does it make sense to implement the automatic deployment, for instance, with using Orchestrator? Do a run book, have that work? Are you cranking out stuff that frequently? And the basic question, like, gee, are the web apps accessible from the internet? You know, can they be seen publicly? And that's really the GSM question. You know, am I going to use GSM or not? Do we need it or not? If you don't have apps that are publicly accessible, you don't need or can't use GSM to monitor them. So that's an easy issue there. Again, to help you shape your DevOps planning, some context there, the things to think about. So the resources, some of these I've mentioned, right? These are just a few. I won't necessarily click through some of the pieces you've already seen. There are many more in the TechNet library. And when I worked on these with the engineering team, we really stitched them together quite tightly. So like I've already said, they're an interconnected set of docs. But I do want to highlight one here that's in particular, which has the word scenario on it. This is on TechNet Wiki. And what it is the one doc that puts it all together. Why is it on the wiki as opposed to the library? Because we realize that, like we just talked about, there are many different implementations for DevOps in this way. Your organization is going to tailor it in a certain way. You're going to learn things along the way, develop some best practices, some good thoughts and considerations that we haven't thought of or that apply to a unique case. It's on the wiki, so you can add that to it here. Add your story to our story. So this being wiki, realize that many people, organizations need to look at the TechNet library. That's the only source they can use. If that's you, that's why we have a complete doc set there. But you'll notice that this leans very heavily on the TechNet library as well. So it's not disconnected. It's not a one-off, here's what I think. This is built on the doc set. It's there. But it is super important and gives the bigger picture, the overview, if you will, hopefully the actionable overview of what the DevOps process is all about. Has sections that look somewhat like sections in the library and how to go about this solution. So I just wanted to highlight that for you because that's really what, you know, like that. How does this fit into your strategy? Tell us. Let us know. Here's some of the architecture guidance for System Center. You know, here's our big take on how to accomplish the DevOps solution that we kind of talked about today. You know, big easy steps. And then I point off to the docs for the details. That's the idea of this one. So if you want to get the big, you know, grok, the overview, this is it. Configure file attachments, synchronize, integrate IntelliTrace, right? Sounds like what we already talked about, but in very basic, simple terms. So very, very much a good thing. And go in there and work on it. We just put those up, again, at SP1 for several things. But as we think about docs and what you need, as we listen to you here and elsewhere, really thinking about building out the stories, the scenarios, the complete end-to-end solutions in the doc set more and more. So look for those as well as you get out there. And that is where I'll leave it right now. So if you have a question, there are two mics in the front, or I can just repeat the question if I can hear you. And hopefully the alarm will not go off again. Wow, all right. I did cover everything. Let's see.
You missed one thing.
Is that, oh, yeah, yes, some.
Does your PowerPoint cover what requirements are needed? I was attending another session on like the global service monitor, and you mentioned it was required for something, and it needs like TFS 2012.
Yeah,
update one. Does your PowerPoints or the links off to it have that information?
Yes. The docs, that kind of detail is all in the docs.
Okay.
Yeah. What you need. And basically you can, 2010, 2012 work. And there are, various steps to take, but they both work pretty well. That makes sense for a Thursday morning? All right. Thanks a ton. Appreciate it.